March 25th, 2022 was a dark day for Purdue basketball. The Boilermakers had just squandered perhaps their best chance to make a Final Four for the first time since 1980, as they had just gotten handled in the Sweet 16, and to make things worse, they had just lost to a 15th seeded St. Peter's, and to make things even worse, it was clear that they had probably just wasted their most talented roster of the last 20 years, as headliner Zach Edey would go on to be a top 5 pick in the upcoming draft. It was the end of a season that began with sky-high expectations, and 2023 was not supposed to be as promising. But then November came, and Purdue, who started the season unranked, beat Marquette, and then West Virginia, and then Gonzaga, and then Duke. And really, they've just kept winning all the way up until now, where the Boilermakers are the unanimous number 1 team in the country, boast a record of 21-1, and are a top 20 team in both offensive and defensive efficiency, a feat that the Boilermakers haven't accomplished since 2016. Somehow, despite losing most of the key parts from one of its most talented rosters ever, Purdue actually looks like a better team this year, and it's due in large part to the emergence of 7'4" center Zach Edey. So let's take a closer look at Purdue basketball and talk about the Zach attack. So what has been the big difference between this year and last year? Well, last year, Purdue had a kind of strange situation on their hands, and I'd have to say it was pretty well documented if you ask me. With Zach Edey sharing minutes with another talented big man in Travion Williams, we weren't able to see the full dominance of Edey on display. But even though he only played around 19 minutes per game last year, Edey was flat out awesome in the time he did spend on the court. He averaged 14.4 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 1.2 blocks per game, while also boasting an insane usage rate of 33%. In fact, Edey's per 40 stats last year were actually more impressive than his likely Wooden Award-winning numbers this year, but we just didn't see enough of it. But let's focus on this season, because Zach Edey has reached his full form, and it's incredibly scary for anyone who has to go against him. So far this year, Edey is averaging 22 points, 13 rebounds, and 2 blocks a game, while shooting 61% from the floor and 73% from the free throw line, and he's doing this while playing 31 minutes a night, which is by far the most he's averaged in his career, while also leading the country in usage rate among players in high major conferences. Edey leads the country in offensive rebounding rate at 21.5%, and he's also had his best games against Purdue's best opponents, as he's averaging 24.8 points and 12.1 rebounds in 9 games against top 50 opponents per Bart Torvik. Now, a simple way to explain Edey's total domination of college basketball is that he's really big. Edey measures in at 7'4", 285, and he towers over pretty much everyone he plays against. But to simplify his effectiveness down to his sheer size does Edey a great disservice, as he's a skilled post presence with great footwork, and his defensive impact has also improved tremendously. Offensively, Edey dominates around the basket, as expected. He's great at establishing position close to the rim, where if he gets a clean touch, he's pretty much automatic, as he's hitting around 75% of his shots around the rim despite being contested on many of these attempts. His size comes into play here because he's pretty much unaffected by any vertical contest. Watch here how Edey is able to shoot over 7'1" Derek Lively for an easy basket. His touch has also improved to the point where he's really good at turning over his left shoulder and finishing with right-handed hook shots, and he's releasing these shots at rim level where he can get softer bounces as well. Edey's also gotten stronger, and while it does help him establish deep position in the post, it also helps him finish through contact, and this makes him even more dominant as he draws over 6 personal fouls per game, which is the most in the Big Ten and a top 10 number nationally. This allows Edey to get a lot of and ones, and when he's hitting around 73% of his free throws, it only adds to his overall efficiency as a player. Despite his dominance though, to suggest that Edey has made drastic improvements to his offensive game would be disingenuous, because he's simply always been this effective. But he has become quicker, more composed, and more assertive in his junior season, even if the year-over-year change in his numbers are slight. He's averaging a career-low 3 turnovers per 40 minutes, and this is thanks to his improved decision-making and fundamentals, and he does a really good job at keeping the ball high when he catches it on the block, and this makes it way more difficult for defenses to force steals and bother him. While his assist numbers are slightly down from a year ago on a per-minute basis, I think this is due to his teammates getting him the ball in more advantageous spots where he can easily score. Last year, it felt like Purdue struggled a lot with passing the ball into the post, but this year with additions like Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, Edey has been able to feast on good feeds, leading to easy baskets and less assist opportunities. And this brings up an important point, as it finally feels like Purdue's roster aligns with its star player, unlike last year where Zach Edey often had to deal with a clogged lane and a lack of spacing. With this year's team though, Edey has free reign of the paint, as Purdue will typically start him with Braden Smith Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Caleb First, and Ethan Morton, all of whom are more outside-in players that can make open shots. While Purdue struggles from the three-point line as a team as they only knock down 33% of their attempts, they have guys who I just trust to make shots, even though the team-wide number would suggest otherwise. Braden Smith leads the team at 42%, and then they have three guys that hit between 34 and 36% in Lawyer, First, and Brandon Newman. To me, that's good enough to exploit defenses and deter teams from trying to double Edey in the post regularly, and even if teams do double team him, he can just do this. While Edey's improvements offensively are more subtle, his defensive gains are much more pronounced. He's averaging a little over 2 blocks per game with a block rate of 7.7%, and like many great rim protectors, he alters a lot more shots thanks to his timing and length. Edey's movement has drastically improved this season, and while he's still largely a drop big, meaning that Purdue will usually have him play below the level of ball screens and gravitate towards the paint, like here, where he'll contain Tyson Walker coming off a ball screen before sending his shot into orbit, he's still able to move around and use his size to smother players who try and score at the rim thanks to his length. And this defensive style works because of the lack of lineups in college basketball that can feature 5 shooters offensively, while also providing the size needed to slow Edey down on offense. Edey presents a difficult problem because the best way to neutralize him defensively is to feature shooting-oriented lineups, but you then have to deal with his size on the other end and will likely give up a ton of easy baskets as a result. What also sets Edey apart from other big guys is his ability to stay out of foul trouble. Last year, despite Edey only playing 19 minutes a game, he picked up 3 fouls 13 different times. This year, however, there have only been 4 games in which he got called for 3 or more fouls, and this is with playing 12 more minutes a game as well. In fact, so far this season, Edey has actually registered 46 blocks compared to only 34 fouls, which marks a downright jaw-dropping shift compared to his first 2 seasons. He understands verticality as well as anyone in the country, as he's great at staying contained as a rim protector and just using his size to alter shots without being overzealous and hunting for blocks. He's extremely disciplined as a defender as well, as he doesn't bite for pump fakes and doesn't reach either. And yes, I know many Big Ten fans think the fix is in with Edey not getting called for fouls, but it's still impressive that he manages to avoid these calls regardless. And this allows him to stay on the floor, which obviously helps Purdue's chances of winning. Edey's presence is the main reason behind Purdue's top 20 defense, and with this, the Boilermakers become a legitimate national championship threat. Overall, thanks to the emergence of Zach Edey as the best player in college basketball, Purdue now seems to have all the right ingredients in place for a deep March run. And unlike last year, the ingredients actually seem to go together. Braden Smith is a composed freshman point guard who leads a team with 4 assists per game. 6'4" freshman Fletcher Lawyer is a big-time shot maker with legit size. Ethan Morton is a solid and versatile defender. Mason Gillis and Caleb First are glue guy wings. Brandon Newman and David Jenkins provide relief in the backcourt and can both hit timely shots. And when Edey isn't on the floor, Trey Kaufman-Renn can provide some minutes at the 5 as well. Everything just seems right, and it really feels like this could actually be Purdue's year. In conclusion, Zach Edey went from a strange situation to a perfect one, and because of that, Purdue has never looked better. Thanks so much for watching, and give me your thoughts below.